Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on the Tableau Server Management add-on. My name is Ryan McShane. I'm a Director of Product Marketing here at Tableau, and I'll be your moderator today. Now, before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items I want to cover about how to interact with today's presentation. Today's presentation is being broadcast live. There's no dial-in or teleconference information. Make sure your computer speakers are not muted and that the volume is turned up. If you need to adjust your audio, please use the volume controls in the upper left side of the console. If you'd like to ask a question during the presentation, simply type the question in the Q&A box located in the left-hand side of the console. Questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Should the slides stop advancing or if you lose audio at any time, please refresh your browser. If you need further technical assistance, you can enter a question in the Q&A box. Today, we're joined with Ted Wasserman, Director of Product Management at Tableau, and focuses on our enterprise product strategy. Today, we're going to cover a couple topics. We're going to talk about what the Server Management add-on is and why we created it. And we'll also talk about the benefits of the add-on and what's included. And we'll close up with Q&A. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ted. Take it away.
Hey, thanks so much, Ryan, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. It's great to be here with you. I've been at Tableau 8 years now, working on different parts of our product, and over the last year or two, been really focused on delivering capabilities that will allow our customers to deploy Tableau at scale. And that's really where this server management add-on has come in. And really, the reason why we're investing in this space is because it's what our amazing customers have been asking us to do. Customers like the ones you see here on this slide. They've been investing in transforming their businesses using data and analytics as key ingredients of that. And as they've deployed Tableau to more and more users across their organization, they've built some really impressive Tableau deployments. They've put data and analytics in the hands of people who need to make decisions, and they've done it at really large scale. Now, of course, managing any platform at scale can be challenging, and one analogy I sometimes use to make this point is sort of going to a concert. You know, it's very different going to, and even organizing a music concert where, you know, the total number of attendees or concert goers is, 50 people, versus when you're going to a concert, let's say, where it's over 50,000 people. What works at smaller scale, in the small concert venue, isn't going to work at big scale. Right? How do you let all the people into the venue? What's the fire and emergency exit plan? How do you supply enough food and drinks to such a large number of people? Right? And so while we're talking about music and music venues here, there are equivalent types of situations in the software world. Over the years, we've heard feedback from our customers that some of the new challenges they're encountering as Tableau adoption explodes in their organization, is because they're trying to deal with the problems of running it at scale. When Tableau transitions from, let's say, an 8-core server, maybe sitting underneath somebody's desk, to a strategic deployment that, runs across the organization and that's operated and run by the IT department, there's usually heightened requirements around security, governance, compliance. There's also unique needs around scalability and challenges around scalability sometimes. There's certain aspects of management and monitoring, maybe that were straightforward before, that start to get more difficult at scale, right? So it's a different set of concerns and issues when you're running any platform really at scale. The nice thing to know is that Tableau has been sort of taking this feedback to heart, and we've been making continuous investments in this realm of deploying Tableau at scale, right? So as you see here, we've outlined a number of investments we've made across the years, everything from single sign-on support with different types of single sign-on technologies like SAML and Kerberos, to new types of APIs like our data extract and hyper APIs, JavaScript APIs, to supporting integrations with enterprise platforms like Linux and database systems, a world-class in-memory database engine called Hyper to accelerate queries, a high available solution. There's lots of great investments we've made over the years, but of course, we're not done yet. There's many additional areas customers are asking us to invest in, and that's really what the genesis of the server management add-on is all about. So we look at what is the server management add-on. Well, what it is it really makes it a lot easier to manage Tableau server at scale. And as a result of that, IT departments will see increased agility and significant time savings. That's the genesis of it. And the add-on focuses really in three key areas of investment. One is around manageability. So how do you manage the platform at scale? One area is around scalability. How do we make Tableau the most scalable platform on the market? And three is around security. How do we help customers ensure that they can meet their advanced security and compliance requirements with Tableau? So what I'll do is I'll give you a quick tour of the investments we've made in each of these areas in the 2019.3 release, which has been out, I think, 2 or 3 weeks now. And these will continue to be our investment themes going forward. So let's start with the first area, which is about the manageability of the platform. So really in this area, we've introduced 2 new tools. One called the Tableau Resource Monitoring Tool. The other one is called the Tableau Content Migration Tool. So obviously, the monitoring tool is about monitoring the performance of your server, and the migration tool is about moving content around. So let's start with the Resource Monitoring Tool. I'll also show you a quick demo of both tools so you can get a better sense for what they do. So really, the Resource Monitoring Tool provides a comprehensive look at the health and performance of the Tableau server, so you can have a much better understanding about, why is my server slow? What's causing it to be slow? Is it workbooks? Is it load on the system? It gives you a view into what's happening on your system so you can take action. And so some of the benefits are just that it's easier to understand and more precisely tune your deployment when you have a clear understanding of what's happening. It enables you to have easy paths to investigate performance issues. And you can also do more advanced things like tracking resources to do things like chargeback, which is also a really interesting capability. From the content migration tool standpoint, this tool really just enables you to more easily and graphically, visually, move workbooks and data sources using rule-based selections and other ways to select content. And as you're doing that content movement, you can also do more complex types of transformations of that content during the migration. So again, benefits of this tool are that you can more easily manage your workbook and data source and content workflows really through this new easy-to-use interface without needing to do a lot of scripting or coding. And this tool is really great for a bunch of different use cases. We have customers with more traditional content production workflows. So they start in a sandbox environment, then they test the content, then they move the content to broader production use. So just that process of taking content through that life cycle is really easy with this tool. We have some customers who do more sort of OEM distribution of a workbook. So they give the same workbook to a bunch of the different constituents, but each workbook is tweaked slightly. So this tool is great for doing that. It also facilitates moving content across different servers. So we have some really large customers, global customers who have, for example, a server in North America and a server in APAC. So the tool is great for moving the content from one server to the other, wherever the server happens to be. And so as a result of these tools, admins of the server and even content publishers and authors are going to see increased operational efficiency. What we've seen previous to this is sometimes customers put together their own solutions for doing these type of operations. And, that's great. And the Tableau platform provides the APIs and everything you need to do that. But of course, any type of custom solution requires time to create. It requires time to support and maintain over time, time to build it. And so really just providing sort of an out-of-the-box set of capabilities, we believe will lead to much greater operational efficiency. So I thought what would be great now is to show you a quick demo of the tools, just so you could see firsthand what they do. So I'm going to switch to my screen here, and hopefully you can see it. Ryan, you'll let me know if you can't see my screen share anymore. But this is the content migration tool that we're currently looking at. And really this tool is a wizard for migrating content from point A or a source to point B or a destination. And so you can connect to, content on one particular server or site or project or across different servers, sites, and projects, and define exactly what you want to move. So I've previously defined a connection to just a really simple sample server I have set up. So I'm just going to sort of configure the tool to connect. It's going to use that server as both the source and destination. So I'm going to click Next now that I've configured my source and target. I can now select the content I want to move. So you can see here there's this wizard that will take me through the process of moving workbooks and applying different transformations as I do that, or moving published data sources, and then having a few other options before we actually go move it. So in this case, I'm going to go and look for specific content in a project. So maybe I have, let's say, a sandbox project on my server where content gets published to initially so that it can be, reviewed for quality, for style, etc. So I'm going to look for content in this sandbox project. And again, I can select the dashboard I'm interested in. I can, go in and check the individual boxes of the content I want to move. I can also do it as a rule-based type of approach as well. So, maybe I want to say like content tagged a certain way, like ready for production or whatever the tag is, right? I can go and I can define like when I'm ready to run this migration, it will just look for content tagged a certain way. Just to keep things simple for this demo, I'm just going to select one piece of content to move. So I'll select this real estate dashboard. As I go through it, I can define certain types of mappings and transformations. So for example, when I move the workbook, do I want to change its location? Do I want to change what it's called? So maybe in this case, I want to change the project. So in this case, maybe I want to move it from the sandbox project to the certified workbook project. So maybe that's one type of transformation or mapping I want to define. I can also define other types of things. It's very common to want to change certain values or attributes of a dashboard or workbook as you're doing the transformation. So for example, maybe I want to replace a URL in there that points from a dev URL to a production URL, or replace an image. We have some customers who use different types of images in their dev environments versus their tester environments, or even remove an image. So if there's an image in a dashboard that has a watermark on it that says beta or whatever it is, you can define, here's the image you want to remove, define a rule for it, and the content migration tool will keep track of all the different types of rules or mappings you've created. You can also do data source transformation, so change the tables you're pointing to, change attributes of the database connection, modify or set some custom SQL. Lots of different options you can do as you move this content from source to destination. There's other options you can do around publishing, do overwrite workbooks, do you copy the permissions and schedules associated with them, lots of different options. You can also migrate data sources using a very similar approach. as with workbooks, but I'm not going to cover that today. There's also flexibility to tie in different scripts. Maybe you want to run pre and post migration scripts to do, content cleanup or other things you might want to do. And then finally, you get to the end of this wizard and you go and you finally just run this plan you created to migrate whatever content you had selected over from one server to the other. In this case, it was one project to the other project. So that's the content migration tool. It makes it super easy to just define these transformations and run them. There's also a scheduling component to this. So if you wanted to, once you built a plan and you wanted to schedule that plan to run, you can integrate with the operating system scheduler to run these plans at specific times. So it's a great new tool. The other tool I mentioned is the resource monitoring tool. So let me switch over to there. So the resource monitoring tool lets you get an overall view of the performance and what's happening on your server. So again, this resource monitoring tool is connected to a couple of different server environments, just small little environments I set up for demos that I'm monitoring. So at a glance, you can just see, the user activity. Again, it's a small server, so not too many users in this case. The CPU activity, as well as, if there's any incidents on the server. We'll come back to that in a second. And of course, I can drill into this server by tapping in that card to get more detailed information about what's happening in the environment. So I can see, what's the server performance, how's it using, on CPU, memory, disk, network, how are the different processes on the server running, or any of them running hot or, close to 100%, what are the different background tasks, what's the usage, what's the load times. So it really gives me a great overall view of the performance. And again, I can sort of try and keep track of all this. And, I see interesting things maybe that are happening on the server. It looks like there's a spike in this window here. What I can do is I can drill into this spike by selecting and dragging sort of a window over it. And I can get much more detailed view on what's happening. What are the different dashboards being interacted with, or we call them VizQL sessions happening in that time window? What are the different background tasks being run in that time window? Is the server slow because there's just a lot of activity and a lot of background tasks, or maybe it's just one workbook that's just very inefficient? I can see the data queries. I can see, how long different views or dashboards are taking to load. In this case, they all look pretty reasonable. But again, if I had a list of, very slow dashboards, I can go back and, work with the owners of these dashboards to prioritize getting them tweaked to make them more efficient and see the slowest views. So it really gives me a great, place to go, one single place to go to see all the information I need to understand the performance of my server, what I need to do to optimize it. I mentioned at the beginning, though, there's these things called incidents. That's what these little numbers are in the bubbles. And you can define different thresholds or incidents you want to get alerted to as sort of an admin of the server. So you can see there's a number of warning type of incidents. In this case, it's views that have taken longer than a certain threshold to load, or a particular query that's taken a particular time to load. All these are customizable. So if I go in here into the tool settings, I can define, how I want to configure these incidents, right? So maybe it's I want to be alerted on slow views, or a certain CPU threshold being crossed, or a certain disk space threshold, or a certain query time threshold being crossed. I can set up all these different types of incidents, and then the resource monitoring tool will alert me when some of these incidents are reached. It'll send me an email letting me know, or I can go into the tool directly and see the different types of incidents. So again, very powerful tool, right? Helps administrators save time to really understand what's happening on the server, what's the activity, why are certain things slow, so they can take action to go fix those things. So we're really excited about the resource monitoring tool, and we've had a lot of great feedback from customers so far. So I'm going to switch back now to the presentation. So we covered the manageability sort of types of tools that are available. Next on the list that you saw was around scalability type features. And there's really two that fall into this bucket. The first is around being able to use an external Postgres database to support the server metadata, or an external repository, we call it. And the second one is all about workload management. So let's start with this first one, this external Postgres database. So as many of you might know, Tableau Server comes or ships with a Postgres database inside of it. And that Postgres database stores metadata about what's happening on the server. Every time somebody publishes a workbook or accesses a view or changes something, adds something, it's logged in this metadata repository. And so over time, especially as your Tableau server deployment grows, you could be generating a ton of metadata. And so by being able to externalize this database into a service like Amazon RDS Postgres, you can take advantage of enhanced scalability, reliability, high availability, even security beyond what the embedded Postgres database or built-in Postgres database might be able to do. So this is especially great and targeted for customers running Tableau Server in AWS. And it's another way we integrate more deeply with the AWS platform and take advantage of all the great engineering work Amazon has done and put into a service like Amazon RDS Postgres. So that's the external repository. The workload management feature is really a way to give Tableau Server administrators more control over what kind of workloads the nodes in the Tableau Server cluster handle. So this feature enables control so that nodes with backgrounder or the data engine or file store process, it allows server administrators to configure specific nodes with backgrounders that process specific types of jobs, like extract refresh jobs or subscription workload jobs. Or in the file store case, specific nodes with file store and data engine, which would help prioritize processing queries versus other jobs like extract refresh jobs. So really this feature is designed to give more control, better scalability, it's sort of resource governance, right? And you get, in some cases, performance gains for specific types of workloads in Tableau Server. So you can control over how, you have more control over how resources are spent executing the different workloads. You can add or scale capacity for specific workloads and make optimizations for certain workflows. So again, really great capability, helps you control the granularity, the resource sort of granularity and consumption on the server, which results ultimately in improved reliability of your Tableau Server deployment as well as scalability. You can scale up more easily by controlling what resources you need and where you want to put those resources. So that's what's happening in the scalability area. The last area is really around security. And in this area, we've done integration with the AWS KMS service for key management. So one of the new features we introduced in 2019.3 is encryption at rest for extract files on the server. So now as a server administrator, you can configure your Tableau server to, one, work as it does today and not encrypt anything, encrypt all the extract files on your server, or sort of delegate the responsibility to individual content authors and publishers to control how they want their extract files to be encrypted or not. So lots of granularity in how you can set it up. The Tableau server comes with an integrated key management service where the keys are stored in the Tableau platform, in the Tableau server. But what this feature allows you to do is provide enhanced or advanced security by being able to store the root key for encryption in the AWS KMS service instead of using that default built-in key management store. So again, it integrates really well with AWS. So if you're running Tableau Server in AWS, it's a great option. And the AWS KMS service provides, it's a very advanced key management service. And by, storing the key in that service, you can meet more advanced compliance requirements. And it's a good security best practice and a central place to store all your keys across all of the different types of applications you might be running in AWS as well. So the AWS KMS service really about being able to reduce risk, improve security, and meeting advanced compliance requirements on your server. So again, here are the snapshot of capabilities at a high level there. So from the manageability bucket, again, the two new tools, one to migrate content, the other to make sure you understand the performance of what's happening on your server. In the scalability bucket, there's the external Postgres repository, the resource governance or workload management capabilities, and then finally, in the security bucket, the integration with the AWS KMS service. So that's what's available in the 2019.3 timeframe. We're going to continue to invest in this add-on, going forward post this 2019.3 release, and we're going to be adding lots of other important capabilities that you've been asking us for. Again, they'll probably be focused on these three key themes of investment. Of course, though, we'd love to hear your feedback and what you need to make sure we're building a set of capabilities and a platform that's going to make you successful. So please engage with us and send us your feedback to ensure we understand what you need to be successful. With that, Ryan, I think I'm going to turn it back over to you to, maybe close with any final words and start the Q&A section.
Perfect. Again, thanks so much, Ted, for walking through, both the capabilities within the server management add-on as well as the benefits that we're providing for customers. Again, to learn more about the server management add-on, you can go to our website, tableau.com/server-management. With that, we do have a couple questions that have filtered in through the chat, so want to go through some of those. First off, Ted, is there a version requirement to be able to use the capabilities within the server management add-on?
Yes. So these capabilities are made available starting with Tableau 2019.3. And so these capabilities require that you upgrade your server to the 2019.3 release.
Gotcha. And can you talk a little bit also about how it's licensed and what the cost is?
Yes. So the way it's licensed is on a per deployment basis. So that means you can license the server management add-on per deployment you have. So sometimes we have customers with, a very large deployment. Let's say, a 128 core environment that serves multiple sort of constituents within their company. That same customer might also have other Tableau server deployments, maybe a smaller, let's say 8-core deployment that serves, maybe one group or a special group in their company. The way the add-on is licensed is by deployment. So it's possible, for example, in that example I just gave, you might license this on the 128-core sort of Tableau server deployment, but choose not to license it on the 8-core deployment. Maybe the constituents on that server don't need the capabilities or they're not ready for them at that point. So you have the flexibility to license it on the deployments where it makes sense. And it is licensed at a per deployment level. So from a pricing standpoint, you're paying for the number of cores in the deployment, or you're paying by the number of users in the deployment.
Great. And a few questions about some of the cloud service integrations. So, you spoke a lot about the integrations with AWS for for both KMS as well as RDS. Are there integrations with other similar cloud platforms, specifically Azure and the Google Cloud Platform?
Yes. So we're looking at both of those. Obviously, we had to start somewhere. We do have a lot of customers who run Tableau on AWS, so that was a logical starting point for us. We also happen to run our own SaaS-based offering, Tableau Online, on AWS, so we had some additional experience there. But yes, the intention is we want to offer these capabilities on those other platforms as well, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, even in more traditional on-premises data centers, being able to integrate with Postgres database or key management platforms there as well is also important. So again, we'd love your feedback, right? If you're on Azure, Google, or if you're running in your own data center, you have your own technologies that you're using for any of these things. We'd love to understand more so that we can keep investing and making sure the capabilities in this add-on will be successful for you.
Great. And we've got one final question around the RMT. And specifically, can you talk a bit about just how a customer deploys that in conjunction with their Tableau environment? And does it work both on Linux and Windows?
Yes, that's a good question. So the way the resource monitoring tool, that server sort of monitoring tool works is you deploy a lightweight agent on each of the nodes or workers in your Tableau server cluster. And those agents sort of track certain types of activity that are happening on your cluster. They collect that activity and send it to, we call it a master server node for resource monitoring tool. So that master server node is a separate sort of machine set up to receive the data from all the different agents in your server cluster, and that machine collects that information, processes it, correlates it, and then there's also that user interface, you saw me sort of demoing with that resides on that node. So that's sort of the setup. You have lightweight agents running on the different nodes of the cluster, and then this separate master server node where all that data gets processed, collected, stored, and then we put a user experience or interface on top of that so you can navigate and understand the data. So that's how it works at a really high level. Today, that tool is only available to work on Windows-based Tableau servers. We know a lot of customers are starting to adopt the Linux-based Tableau server, and that's the number one sort of item on our roadmap is to make that tool available for Linux-based Tableau servers as well.
Right. Well, thanks so much, Ted. That actually wraps up our questions. So for everyone that's tuning in, thanks for taking the time today. And again, if you're looking to learn more about the capabilities within the server management add-on, please visit our website, tableau.com/server-management. Thanks so much. Have a great day.